Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast, brought to you by DraftKings, America's #1 sportsbook app. A little bit of a different time today. William had grown-up business to attend to, so we're here. But Brad, this game against UCLA that we talked about on Saturday, this really felt, this was the vintage win of the Jedd Fisch era to this point. And I also think against a good team, it showed where Arizona can go going forward. And the Pooch, by the way, what's the Pooch's name?
This is Millie Doggy Brown.
Millie. Millie looks very sweet.
She is. She was been abandoned in our neighborhood, and she came to live with my daughter. And I think she wants to fix up with Ted Wardo.
Okay, well, Ted Wardo's always available. The most eligible bachelor in all of Tucson, Ted Wardo Luke. But Brad, just watching that game, though, it just felt like, again, I don't want to say it's a turning point, but it showed, though, when everything is clicking, what this program and the talent overhaul with Jedd Fisch is capable of.
I'll tell you what I thought it meant more than any of that is it was the first time against a good team. And apologies to South Dakota State. You're still an FCS team. That Arizona kind of sealed the deal.
Right.
Last year, we saw Arizona trade punches with Oregon for a while, with UCLA, with Utah. This year, we saw the USC game, but they could never finish unless you count again, they had some closer games this year where they were able to pull out wins, but for the most part, they either played inferior competition or they blew them out, and they didn't, have that down to the wire game again against South Dakota State notwithstanding. So this was not only the victory over one of these top, and let's be honest, UCLA looks like a top 20 team. They're not a top,
sure. But it's a top 25 team for sure.
No, it's a legit team. So they got that win, and they did it in a game where they could have given the game away at any time. Instead, it was actually UCLA who kind of gave the game away. And I know it came down to a final play. And it just showed, to me, a maturing of the program. It's a cliche, but it's not an untrue cliche. You have to learn how to win. Mm-hmm. And this team now has pulled out one of these games. Again, they've had their opportunities, but they've never been able to seal the deal. They sealed the deal.
All right. Jedd Fisch and Jayden de Laura, I thought you put this very well on the post-game show the other night when you said, listen, he said, there's going to be a couple plays where you're like, that's just Jayden being Jayden. But I think it's fair to say at this point, he's a player. I mean, sure, he's not perfect, but man, he's a player, Brad.
With certain quarterbacks, you can, who are good, let me stress that, you can accept mistakes because you're going to pay dividends.
Right.
With Favre and some of those guys, it was throwing into tight coverages. It was that gunslinger. With some of your more mobile quarterbacks, it's running around crazy. And sometimes you're going to take a 20-yard sack. Right. But sometimes you're going to throw the touchdown pass to T-Mac. And if you can, and in my mind now, I'm willing to accept 2 bad sacks a game if that means 3 or 4 big plays.
Right.
Just like I think a very good analogy to me is every once in a while, Salim was going to chuck one up 3 seconds into the shot clock.
For sure. Well put.
I mean, if you remember, it's my favorite play, the upset at Kansas or the win at Kansas. Mm-hmm. They're milking clock late. Gardner kicks it over to Salim in the corner with 20 seconds left of the shot clock, and he drains the corner 3, ball game.
Right.
Now, he also missed some of those shots. Yeah, you're going to take, same thing. Steph Curry. You're going to take a 35-footer every once in a while. That's a bafflingly bad shot, but he's also going to make a few of them. So, again, if he takes 4 of those sacks a game, that's probably not worth it. But if it is 1 or 2, instead of me yelling at the TV, I'm just going to be like, this is Jayden being Jayden. And we'll see what he can do the next possession. Now, if he does that with 10 seconds left in the game, we all remember the bad Anu sack in the bowl game up in Phoenix. We all remember, Khalil Tate taking really bad sacks when all he had to do was throw the ball away. But that's not the case.
Running out of bounds 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
This is a guy trying to keep a play alive. And let's be honest, he doesn't have the best offensive line. They're better. They're competent, but he has made them look even better with his legs. And again, if you can take those 2 or 3 bad sacks a game because you're going to get 5 or 6 big time plays, it's worth it.
I want to talk a little bit about the offensive line that you brought up and a little bit of the evaluation skills. But first of all, I want to tell you a little bit about OGs. All right, here's the deal. Very excited about OGs because they're hopping back in here. They've renewed. Terms of the agreement were not released at the time, but here's what's going on with OGs, though. All kinds of good stuff. They just did something totally fun to change the game. They just launched their new Sleepy Edition gummy. You won't have to sleep on these anymore. Yes, you heard us right. OGs is now flavoring dreams with a 2-to-1 THC CBN ratio gummy. CBN is a compound that helps specifically with falling and staying asleep. And this Sleep Edition gummy is the new Aquaberry. We highly recommend you check out OGs online at ogbrands.com and on Instagram at ogbrands. You can also find their products at local dispensaries as well. Must be 21 and up. Good stuff right there. Again, I got some of it when I was in Phoenix. It helps you get to sleep. If you've got sleeping problems, you'll want to check it out. Check the link in the description. And here's the other thing. Four Peaks, the official brew of PHNX Sports. Here's the deal. You can go up to Tempe. They've got all kinds of good stuff going on there. They got watch parties. They got deals. You go up there, you're going to see a PHNX presence generally. Or if you're an Arizona fan, you get your Four Peaks at the Tap and Bottle watch parties for the away games. We always have it. It was at 8:30 this past week, but you know what? People showed up. It was a great time back in the A. Check it out, Four Peaks, and check out the link in the description. Okay. William, you talked about how the offensive line is better, and Jordan Morgan being out for the season is obviously a big blow for Arizona because he's been your best lineman. You know, for selfish reasons, it might mean that he comes back next year, which, you know, as an Arizona fan, you'd love to see, but you don't want to see the injury, obviously. But Wendell Moe, Jonas Savanea, the interior line of this offensive line is pretty much set for the next 2-3 years right there. And these are both guys that were probably severely underrated by the recruiting services. You can tell by watching Jedd Fisch talk about Wendell Moe that he doesn't believe that Wendell Moe is going to be coming out of that lineup anytime soon.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Moe was a guy they picked up really late in the process.
Yes.
Like summer. So here was a guy who, you know, had some things going on with the family, if I'm not mistaken, and that Arizona was able to kind of, you know, find him and pick him up. You see that sometimes happen with JC guys. Usually it's a transcript issue, but here's a guy from a major program in Southern California. Arizona was able to get, and you know, he's playing right away. So that bodes. I think what that shows us is not only an evaluation ability, but an ability by Carroll to develop young guys quickly.
Right.
If a guy is strong enough, that's the first part with developing offensive linemen. Secondly, is teaching, because so much of offensive line play at the high school level, and it's a little different in the, you know, some of those LA leagues and Texas leagues, but it's just manhandling a smaller guy in front of you.
Right.
You know, Jordan Morgan was, you know, if he played 22 varsity games, I'm guessing in all 22 or 21 of them, he was the biggest guy.
Right.
And even if he was going against a college-sized defensive end, he probably wasn't going against a college athletic defensive end. Right. So for him, there was probably a much bigger adjustment, and he played early on too, but the results weren't as good for Morgan. But you know, if you're at Marana High School, they ran a complex offense, but usually he just had to be stronger than the guy in front of him,
right,
and drop back in the pass pro and take it over from there. So the fact that they can get these guys ready quickly, it shows that, you know, the ability to, if they can land some of these physically mature young players, that they can get them on the field quicker, and you might not have to rely as much. Again, they're still going to have to, on the JC ranks, on the transfer portal, because, you know, they didn't do real well in the transfer portal. You know,
well, no, I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think
on offensive line. On
No.
offensive
Sorry.
line. Yeah.
No, oh, yeah.
I mean,
No, I was talking overall. But
no,
yes,
no,
you
no,
are
no, no,
correct.
no, no, no,
Yeah,
no, no. Offensive line.
for
They
sure.
brought in a couple JC guys who, Longy
Right.
was not this. He was last year's
Right,
class,
right.
but that's a hard eval too. The
No
JC
doubt.
offensive lineman is a really hard eval. So if you can just say, hey, you know what, I can pluck a 3-star kid who's physically mature, and I can turn him into a legit D1 guy with 5 weeks of the season of practice, that bodes well for Arizona in the future. Now, do I still think they have to probably hit the transfer portal? Yeah. Would I like to see a couple guys who were, maybe the 8th offensive lineman at a top 25 school, top 20 school, come and be a starter here? Yes. But I feel a little more confident about the future of this offensive line because, again, you now have 2 guys who, even if they go pro, are here 2 more years and are likely here 4 more years. And
Right.
and Mo may even have preserved the red shirt.
Right. Let's talk now. This kind of dovetails right what you were talking about, William. Let's talk about now the defense. I absolutely love playing the young guys at this point. And you look at it, I know that they burned a lot of redshirt years, but to me, when, Jedd Fisch put it very well in the presser, he said, listen, we were very honest with these kids. We were bringing them in to play. And if they're ready to play, we're going to play them. Let's just start on the D line right there. You got Uiagalelei at one of the tackle positions right there, who got his first sack. You're probably going to see a lot more of him. Jacob Kongaika, 2 guys that were definitely overlooked. And then you got Deuce Davis off the edge. They're also putting Deuce Lane at there. That's kind of looks like what they're looking to go for into the future. And I love playing the kids as long as they're physically ready.
Yeah, and again, some of those guys had not played much earlier in the year, maybe not at all. So by playing on these final 4 games, you still preserve the red shirt.
Right.
I'm pretty sure Uiagalelei did play earlier in the year a little bit in spot minutes. But no, if those 4 guys can all prove to be even just competent, that's the start of a really good rotation.
Right.
Because you are going to lose 3 key contributors from that defensive line with Eccles and Harris and Bars, but the rest of it now,
Bars can come back if he wants to.
He could, yeah. And he may have to because he has not had quite the year he wanted.
Correct.
But I'm talking long term,
for sure.
Savea
might be in the mix as well as.
It's not time to rule out Savea, but he doesn't look to me to be a high end starter, at least not yet.
I agree with that.
But again, we just named now 6 guys who you can build around, and if you can focus more of your attention on linebacker, safety, corner might be okay. You may not have to at least hit the transfer portal with corner. Obviously, you're still going to have to bring in recruits, but you might be at the point where maybe you're bringing in 1 veteran linebacker, 1 veteran lineman, 1 veteran safety to go along with these young guys, and you feel a lot better about where the defense can be a year from now. Than if you had to find 3 linemen, 2 linebackers. I'm feeling pretty confident that Jacob Manu can be at worst, a rotational linebacker full-time in the league, which is what he is this year. But he was outstanding against UCLA. You feel pretty good about that. Obviously Prysock looked really good so far at corner, but that you can combine him with the other 2 true freshmen. And
you got Takario Davis and you got Traden Stukes, and there's only a sophomore.
And Stukes is the 3rd. Yeah.
Right.
So Stukes is a guy who, again, I'd feel much better if Stukes is your 3rd or 4th corner than your number 1 corner.
Right. I agree.
But again, that might mean you don't have to go find more guys in the transfer portal, and you can concentrate those scholarships on young players who can develop and who can, come in and provide depth. And maybe not have to play right away like Prysock is.
Let's talk about Jacob Manu right now, because he was the Pac-12 freshman of the week. You talk about a guy that's not going to really be coming out of the lineup much. Since he's been inserted, he's essentially every week he's been the leading tackler. You can see every game he gets a tackle or a 1 or 2 tackles for loss. He's very much got and again, there's not a real natural comparison for him, but he's got in a different position. He's got a little bit of that Jared Tevis type feel to him, and that he's always around the ball. He's not the biggest dude, but his instincts are next level.
Yeah, I mean, if you want an Arizona comparison, it's Adrian Koch,
Yeah,
linebacker
that's a good
from
one.
the early 90s who was probably 5'8".
Right.
Now, he was an older guy. He was a guy who did some military time,
It's in
came here.
Somalia, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so, yeah, as a
Yeah.
preferred walk-on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I've told the story and everything, but as a shorter man myself, my two favorite Wildcats for most of my college time were Koch and Keith Smith. And I got to have a beer with both of them at a tailgate
You made it.
a couple years ago at the same time. Like, they're
Right.
buddies. Yeah, and they're still both taller than me. So, yeah, Manu can play. Now, my question is, can Manu be a guy who can every down play on a good defense?
Right.
No disrespect to him, but at the time, he is undersized. He is, so can he be a run stopping linebacker consistently 2 yards, 3 yards from the line of scrimmage, as opposed to being the guy who chases down?
Right.
I'd feel really good if he was a rotational guy with 2 or 3 other elite, linebackers. That being said, he's playing fantastic, so I don't want to think I'm pooping on him, but there's a reason you don't see a ton of 5'9" linebackers, because eventually, if an offensive lineman gets his hands, and again, if an offensive lineman gets his hands on most linebackers, they're eaten up. But it's going to be a little bit harder for him. But I'd love for him to be a guy who plays 60% of the snaps. Use him in pass coverage because he's mobile, because he does have a nose for the football. Bring him off blitzes, and then have, for the lack of it, 2 guys built like Jerry Roberts. I'd love to have, the guy I'd love to have right now is Anthony Pandy,
Right.
who they lost last year. Very athletic type linebacker. So again, Manu is fantastic, but again, I think long term you're going to need depth at that position, because I need to see it. And if he shows, I want him to prove me wrong. I want Jacob Manu to be my favorite player, but the wear and tear, especially playing like the Utahs and USCs who can just pound you, can be tough with an undersized linebacker.
All right, Jacob, you say you want Jacob Manu to be your favorite player. Jacob Franklin is one of my favorite people, even though he's up in Phoenix. Jacob Franklin is one of the coolest people out there. And put it to you like this: if Jacob Manu, let me ask you this: if Jacob Manu had Jacob Franklin's 6'8" frame, what position is Jacob Manu playing at that point? Is he even playing football, or is he back in the A for Tommy Lloyd?
He's playing power forward, yeah.
What
are those? The common Polynesian power forwards.
Yes, they're everywhere. Yes,
it's only a matter of time, though.
2 things: tap and bottle. Tap and bottle downtown. All the away game watch parties have been a resounding success. Part of the reason is that the Luke Brad Allis has been down there multiple times, bringing down one of the future interior offensive linemen for the U of A, Mr. Tyler Allis, as well. If you want to get started on early names in the recruiting for the what class?
What is he? I want to say 32.
2032.
That can't be right, though, because he's, I don't know, he's in 6th grade. So 6 years from now. So what?
All right, 6 years from now. So again,
29. Yeah.
When Arizona's getting ready to play Alabama, that's, if you're looking for a new guy, he might be down there. But again, check it out. Lots of good stuff going down. They got 4 Peaks Brew on tap as well. Would love to see all of you down there. And we're going to be pushing this into basketball as well. And game time. All right. Now, here's the deal. A lot of procrastinators out there. I don't think Jacob Franklin is a procrastinator out there. He doesn't strike me as the type. But I do know procrastinators. And you know what? If they want to go to an ASU game and say, I'd really like to see ASU lose by 30 again against Arizona this year, but you wait until the last second, that's where Game Time has you, because Game Time can get you those tickets last second at 60% off many times. We've had people that have called in and have talked about utilizing Game Time. Check it out. Links in the description. The best way to support PHNX is by buying your tickets there. Again, check it out, Game Time. All right, Brad, I was talking about Tyler Loop during the, actually at the watch party. I am ecstatic with Tyler Loop, and here's why.
Is it because you like to call him Tyler Luke and claim him as another fam?
I can't tell you how many people have asked me if I'm related to him, and I say, well, our names aren't the same, but I mean, other than that. But I don't care if he can't kick a field goal beyond 40 yards. That means nothing to me at this point, because keep in mind, you and I grew up watching Steve McLaughlin, Matt Payton, guys like that. we've also seen the other end of the stick where you get guys that it's a 50-50 making an extra point. You get a Lucas Havrasek who can kick it from 60 but can't kick it from 25. Tyler Loop is gold inside of 40. And for a coach that is very aggressive on that side of the field on fourth down, I'm ecstatic that Tyler Loop is our kicker. I just wanted to throw that one out there.
Yeah, luckily for Arizona, they haven't needed a 55-yarder to win a football game.
Right.
So I just cursed them. And again, I don't know what Loop's range is. It doesn't look to be as good as Havrasek.
But he's a lot more reliable, though.
No.
Like,
so I don't know if he would kick a 50-yarder to win a game, or if they have another kid who's the long-legged kicker. We haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. But yeah, Loop's been nailed, and he's been good. Unfortunately for Arizona, they aren't in many Tomey ball games, so you haven't needed a whole lot of kicks from him this year. And that's just the way college football is going. You're gonna, I know everyone likes to blame analytics, but I think you now have a bunch of coaches who are raised on Madden as well, and they know the ability to go for it on fourth down. And with high-powered offenses, you're able to do that. But yeah, I mean, you feel real good about Loop's chances of knocking down anything from even 44, 43 in. And again, with two important football games to come where every point's at a premium, that could be a very important thing we could look back on and say, we all remember there was been a few chances to beat ASU and field goals were not made that Arizona needed.
All right. Now let's move over to Arizona basketball. We got a presser tomorrow, and then I'll have a podcast up after. I'm going to ask Tommy Lloyd tomorrow what he thinks about the nickname, the Tommy Gun. And just to see, see what he thinks right there. But the reason I'm asking, though, is because Arizona basically is going to flirt with 100 points pretty much every game. You and I talked about this before a bunch of times, and I wanted to get your take. Is this something where, and Schuster always says that generally 14 is the over-under turnovers you don't. Is it fair with Tommy Lloyd's style of play, the way they're going to score, to maybe move that number to about 17, 16? Or is that 14 number for you something that's pretty much hard and fast?
See, to me, 14 was always Lute's number.
Right.
13 or 14, and Lute played, because remember, Miller's number is 12.
Right.
So I get uncomfortable with more than 14. Now, against the teams that can, beat ASU, 17 might be a fine number, but against teams that Colorado has beaten, if you turn it over 17 times at Tennessee, you're not going to win. Against Tarleton State or whoever, Grambling, these teams who are beating Pac-12 teams, but Arizona can survive 15, 16, 17, 18 turnovers. But against good teams, no. 14's probably, if you're turning the ball over 17 times, you better be shooting like 48% or better, 50% or better.
Right.
So yeah, I think 14 or 15 is still your number. And other than that, again, I get uncomfortable because then you kind of leave that door. It's just like rebounding margin.
Right.
Anytime you're, you can say, well, if you shoot really high percentage, yeah, but I'd still want a +5 or better rebounding margin. I'd like +10. So yeah. So again, for me, now I did someone on one of the Wildcat groups who said it's unacceptable. Well, you won by 35, so it's not unacceptable.
And see, I want to stick up for this team a little bit here because they're getting beat up because in the last game against Southern, you got outscored in the second half. You got to remember one thing about this. If this game was an 8 to 12 point game the entire game, I would be totally with you. And granted, you don't want them, but these are also kids out here. When you get up 25, 28 points in the first half, and again, I'm not excusing it, I'm explaining it, that's where kids start to, their attention starts to wane a little bit because, but again, to me, it's a lot different if you get up 30 and it gets back to 17 as opposed to being 8 to 12 the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not even a concern yet. It's just something to keep an eye on. It's like you throw an interception at the end of a half trying to, okay, yeah, your turnover number's up, but not really because you were just trying something, So again, let me see what happens when they play good teams. And if they're turning the ball over 17, 18 times, then yes, it is time to really be concerned. But yeah, I'm not real worried about a lot of turnovers, especially late in a blowout against a team that half these kids, maybe more than half, because didn't know existed until they got the game film.
Right. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about Pelle Larsson. But first, I got to tell you about the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. William, have I talked to you about this before?
You have.
Okay. But you know what? I have a bad memory, so I can't always remember who I've told. Here's the deal.
But you got all these people on the column here, and I hopefully I put it the wrong way.
I was going to say, we got Ben, we got Kobe, we got CJ, we got Sean, all these people right here. New customers can bet any NBA game, put down $5 money line, and get $200 if your team wins. Again, you might say to yourself, Mike, that sounds awesome. I'm not done.
Not done.
Yep, correct. You could also boost your winnings up to 100% with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. It's simple. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. What's the code word, William?
PHNX.
All right, you know the drill. That's promo code PHNX on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. If you wanted to bet overs, because who likes betting unders, you would bet overs on Chief games and bet overs on anything that Tommy Gunn is involved in right there. Okay, Brad, you and I were kind of on the same page as about Pelle Larsson before the season. I was a little more optimistic, maybe because Tommy Lloyd has shown that when he says something about how he expects a player to be really good, that generally it turns out to be true. Again, with the competition here, but Pelle Larsson does look like an all-conference guy, and I don't know that I expected that.
Yeah, I think interesting enough, I think I was higher on him last year in the preseason than you were.
Correct.
Only because you were really out on Pelle.
I was really out. My bad, Pelle is a hashtag.
No. And again, my eval was, I think he could duplicate his numbers from Utah and maybe be a tiny bit better. I did not see sixth man of the year. But I think you were a little more optimistic than I was coming into the year. Because I think you have more faith in Tommy Gunn at his word. Because I'm used to.
But he's been right though when he said last year about Loco.
But I've been hurt before. I've been told that guys are dealing with a family issue when they're hurt. I've been told that Jamel Horn won't return till February when he comes back a game later. So I've been hurt I've been told that they're going to use a combo forward. Right. I've been told they're going to use the tight end. I've been hurt before. Right. But maybe it's just time to open up and be willing to take Tommy Lloyd at his word. Because right now, the Swedish pinball appears to be an all-conference type player. Now, again, we're 2 games in.
Right.
But, he looks really good. And so I might just have to, again, I'm like the divorcee who's got to learn to.
I guess not everybody is going to ruin you. Not everyone out there.
Tommy might be a man of his word, and I'm still trying to get used to not offering 107 kids either.
Isn't it bizarre? Yeah. Now Courtney Ramey's coming back game after next, and I believe that Courtney Ramey I believe he'll go into the starting lineup next to Kirk Risa. What are you looking for from Ramey when he does hit the court?
I think it's going to go one of 2 ways. I either think Courtney Ramey is going to regress statistically and be a key role player for this team, or he's going to bloom and be like, this is what would have happened if I wasn't being coached by Chris Beard last year.
Right. Or maybe a little more Shaka Smart type offense.
Or if Shaka Smart was the VCU coach, So you could tell me he averages 15 and I believe you. You could tell me he averages 7 and I believe you. Right. And I'm not sure which Arizona needs more. I fully expect him to be a key contributor. I just don't know if it's going to be a flashy key contributor guy who's lighting it up, or if he's going to be, again, a rich man's Justin Kier.
We talked about it before. What's better, a poor man's Reggie Geary or a rich man's Justin Kier?
Yeah, I always like to be a rich man, so I'll take a rich man's Justin Kier.
Because,
I'd rather him just be Reggie-esque. How about that?
Right. All right. Everybody out there, really appreciate you all hopping on right here. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow. We've got a post-presser podcast. Brad, before we sign off, though, where can they find you? Where can they get all your work?
Right now, the best thing is follow me on Twitter. That's where I talk most of the Wildcats. Hopefully, we'll be doing some podcasts soon. It's just been absolutely insane around the Allis household. The twins just had their birthday on Saturday. Still trying to get some holiday stuff in order, work stuff in order. But when I do post those podcasts, again, I hope to record one into the week. Find it on Twitter, or just go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, as long as it happens to be Anchor, Spotify, Apple, or Google.
And you can generally find Brad on the post-game shows here with us, and you can always find him here on Tuesdays. So again, that's your Brad Allis fix. Brad?
And the good news is, although tonight's the last baseball game of the year, so I will have most of those Saturday evening post-game shows available, at least until baseball starts again, right around the time of the Pac-12 tournament.
Brad Allis, ladies and gentlemen, big privilege having him on a consistent basis. Can't thank you all again for chiming in here. We will be back with you tomorrow for the 6'8" Jacob Franklin in the background right there. We appreciate you. Brad Allis, I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.